session name is Automated Human Vulnerability Scanning with AVA by Laura Bell. Thank you.
Hi, how are we doing? Yeah? We all eating lunch, feeling that kind of fuzzy warm of sitting in a warm room in the dark for an hour is a good idea, right? Okay, let's get started. My name is Laura. I'm not going to dwell too much on that because we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to break a few conventions. I'm going to encourage you to go and use the social universe. There are a couple of... Sorry, it's very echoey. I'm going to step back a little bit. Is that a little bit better? Right. I'm going to encourage you to use the Twitters. I want you to get involved with this discussion. And as we go with this talk, you'll realize this really is a discussion. We're about to talk about things that might make you feel uncomfortable. Now, I say might, but having spoken about this a few times now, I know that some of you will feel uncomfortable. Previous members of audiences have said that I should be thrown in prison. So either way, I'm really sorry. But I'm kind of not. Because it turns out I want you to feel slightly uncomfortable. We are going to be discussing things that are some of the squishier areas that we generally avoid in security. We're going to be talking about things that go against how we relate to other people. You see, I like people. That's the mistake people make. They think that because I want to do bad things to nice people, that I'm a bad person and I inherently don't like people. Well, that's not true. I have a young daughter. I'm invested in creating more people. I think people are pretty awesome. So I do. I really like people, and I like them so much I want to protect them. And I want you to go to your organizations or wherever the hell you've come from in the world and protect your people. Because I've been to the vendors, I've been around the Hall of Wonders, and I've been told we've conquered it. We have secured our border. There is a magic box that will secure our applications. And threat intelligence is not just a rare unicorn now. It is cattle. We all have these things in vast amounts for our very skilled, dedicated security teams. Sorry, yeah. Turns out, however, attackers are relatively lazy. We're not really interested in proving we can best your technology stack. Penetration testers are very rarely interested in proving that Microsoft have bugs. They're interested in seeing what they can use those bugs to attain. So if we've secured our border and we've secured our applications and we have threat intelligence so we know what is coming for us, then if I'm the attacker, and it might just be me, I'm going after the people. Because if you read the study in the register last week, for $100, people will give you pretty much anything from the organization. Now, I'm pretty bad at maths, but when it's going to cost you $100,000 for a border device, I think the investment is kind of outweighing the cost of an attack. People are the path of least resistance, and we have to do something about it. So in this talk, we're going to cover three things. We're going to talk about the problem with people, why we need to protect them, and what we're doing and what's going wrong there. I'm going to introduce a tool, but I'm going to again break Black Hat convention. I'm going to release an unfinished tool, a tool that actually needs further help and development. You see, we don't sell the tool, it's open source. And the reason it's not finished is we've got questions and we need people like you to answer them. Then we're going to look at some of the challenges here and the reason people think that I should be in prison and the reason that people don't want to talk to me anymore and the reason that we try to avoid talking about personal security at all. Because we're really, really comfortable when we talk about technology. When we talk about technical vulnerabilities, it's easy, right? We have a language system, we have taxonomies, we have CV, SS scores. We've got it down to an art now. We don't empathize at all with our technology. It is just a machine. When we're doing a vulnerability assessment or a penetration test, we're doing the logical equivalent of smashing it with a big hammer. But we don't care. It's not going to cry. It's not going to complain. It's a computer. People, however, are a big part of our system, and they're over a third of what we're not looking at right now. So we've got technology space, we've got the personal space, we've also got process. So in our technical space, we're mature, right? We're actually commoditized. Penetration testing is a race to the bottom price-wise at the moment, as many firms will attest to. Vulnerability scanning is something you can do yourself with a device in your environment. Processes are audited. Now, audit might be the devil's work, but still, we're doing it. We have a mature system in place. Many compliance firms or compliance regimes are making a lot of money out of that. It's going to be a good thing. So what are we doing about our people? What are we doing about the squishy stuff? So let's figure out the problem with people. Human vulnerability, as in things in our humans that make them susceptible to risk, likely to be hurt or exploited, is actually really natural. It's part of what makes us the society we are today. Vulnerability comes from all sorts of places. It comes from that fear. You know, that fear that we're going to be harmed in some way physically or mentally or emotionally. We'll be discovered. That, you know, I'll close my eyes for a second, but raise your hand if you make up your job for a living every day. You know, nobody wants to raise their hand, but actually professional life is about making things up quicker than the people around you. We are vulnerable all the time and we hide it. We don't want to talk about vulnerability. Love makes us vulnerable. The things we love, you know, the fact that you like that cheesy TV show and you watch 6 hours of it a night. The fact that you spend, you know, all of your free time and money on whatever hobby you're obsessed with. The fact you fill your life with people that you care about. All of these things make us vulnerable. If you ever go anywhere near kind of these spy movies and things, you notice when they're going to, you know, exploit a person, they're trying to get a lever. And they'll do it with either fear or they'll do it with love. They're going to damage something you care about. There's vulnerability there. We're also a really strange creature because, you see, we think we understand people pretty well. And we go, well, no, it's fine. We know people will react in, you know, X, Y, and Z ways. But people are like water. We do anything in our power to get to what we're going to try and do. It's why technology adoption of things like encryption is so poor, because people don't want to spend time on the journey. They're interested in sending the email, sending a message. They don't want to have to deal with PGP. And then we get surprised as a security community when we can't predict them because we've assumed we already knew, so we didn't pay attention. We need to change some of these things. We need to kind of embrace them. We need to challenge some of them. We need to find a way to do defense in the human security space. Now, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants in some ways. Chris Hagney and all of those professionals in the social engineering space have been doing the offensive side very well for a number of years now. In fact, there are a range of great books. You can buy them from the Black Hat store here today. That I just go and read them. I don't get commission, by the way. I just think they're good books. But you go and find one about defending large numbers of people, not much at all. We like the attacking. We like the offense because it's glamorous. It makes us feel like we're being a spy or being deceptive. But in fact, it's the defense that's important. And then comes compliance. So PCI compliance, just to name one, and I'm not picking on them, there are many equally terrible regimes. They have a nice checkbox and it says, every member of staff in your organization should be given information security awareness training. Fantastic. That spawned an entire industry of learn to click left video learning. So we have trained an entire generation of our staff to get to the final exit button as quickly as possible. So we learned very quickly to find the button that said next, or to hit enter as many times as it would allow. In some systems, we learned how to do SQL injection purely because that's the best way to get 100% on those things. So we do video training, we do e-learning, that's going super well. We tick boxes, we're compliant, yay, certificates, hurrah. And we make posters. So, security awareness education really sucks. How many of you have inflicted this on someone in your company? I've done it before. I am guilty of this. It really does suck. If you've not put yourself through it, I do encourage you to go back to your office and put yourself through your own course. This is an example of a poster. If you go and Google information security awareness poster, these are the types of gold we see. Don't share your password with others. It's like your toothbrush. Change it often. So, how long do people leave between changing their toothbrushes at the moment? You don't want to know that number. That number is not good. This is not a good analogy. So if you have that compulsion, if you're at your desk and you've got some kind of like Photoshop open and you're like, I'll make a poster, stop. Consider this an intervention. You're among friends. Friends don't let friends make information security awareness posters. Turns out this isn't how people learn at all. In fact, psychologists and the education sector have known this for years. We're just a community that's not very good at playing well with others. So we kind of didn't reach out and ask them. There's lots of tricks to forming good habits. Doing one poster is not doing these things. This is the 3 R's of habit formation. This is, the reward cycle that how people form habits. I recommend go and read some psychology books. But I'm not here to tell you about this. I'm trying to tell you about a domain that exists that we could have learned from and we should be learning from. And I'm hoping through AVA we are. One of the most despicable things is that we shame victims of information security attacks. In New Zealand, where I come from today, there have been giant government breaches where it's been caused by nothing more than someone trying to be helpful. Someone answering a question they thought they were authorized to answer, sharing a document they didn't see any harm. This isn't something that we should shame them for, because secretly we're doing it all the time ourselves. When I do social engineering jobs or pen tests of that type, it's the systems administrators, the security team, that have the ego that means that they forget they're actually vulnerable. Most of the success in these jobs is done through attacking people who think they know better. We forget that we're a connected species. In fact, our entire survival as a species has related to the fact human beings play well with other human beings, trust them, and build things together. So when we do things like automated phishing attacks at the moment, which are quite common as a measure you might be using in your organization, we do them against individuals as an isolated thing. We ignore the fact that if, say, for example, you have a call center full of people, that they're always communicating with each other, that they actually function as a unit. The person you attack may not be the one with access. They might actually then go and ask their friend, because their friend has more permissions than them. We overlook the fact that to understand our security risk, we don't need to know the risk of one person falling for a social engineering attack. We need to know the risk of a group, a community, falling for it together. Because the most successful attacks don't necessarily find the right person the first time. So why don't we actively assess this? Well, we do bits and pieces, right? We do red teaming and social engineering pen tests. But believe me, these are reserved for the most mature of organizations with big budget. These are such a small fraction of the security work we're doing that it's negligible and it doesn't reach most organizations. Now, companies like FishMe, Fish5, all of these kind of phishing as a service things, this is a step in the right direction. It's a continual assessment. But as I'm going to show you, it's only showing you part of the picture. And we don't test because we're actually slightly arrogant. Myself included. I include myself in all of these. We don't test because it's too easy to hack a person. You just tell them a lie, offer them candy, give them $100. We don't do it because people can't be taught. People are lazy and stupid. That's people other than ourselves, obviously. We don't need teaching because we're better than them. But the reality is, we aren't lazy or stupid, and we can be taught. We're just really terrible educators. Really awful. We don't test because it makes us feel uncomfortable. We don't engage in this because it makes us feel weird, and people might get fired because it's hard and because we have no fricking clue how we would fix it. Knowing that you're broken is really, really scary. Knowing that the system you've built could be compromised by a simple thing like an email or just somebody finding a USB stick is terrifying, because we spend millions of dollars a year building these giant castles, and we're going to be let in by somebody politely at the front door. Border devices aren't enough. I went to a talk about 6 months ago and they said, it's okay, my spam filter will stop it all. Now, border devices are great and they are necessary and they are part of defense in depth. Fantastic, keep doing that. But really, they are not enough. For every time we create a device, the offensive community is ahead of us. They are adapting, they are evolving. There is such a fragmentation and evolution pattern in the offensive space that our border devices have no hope. There's no way we can predict how these things will mutate next. Now, this might change one day, but right now we're not there. But we spend millions of dollars a year on these things and hope they will just save us. So I'm going to tell you about AVA. AVA is a tool that I built to scratch an itch. I had a theory. I was getting frustrated. I couldn't communicate in an organization how the risk in their people looked, how the organization fitted together, and how they responded to a range of risks. AVA once used to stand for something, I'm sure, but as most acronyms go, it's pretty useless. Let's just call it AVA. It's a first-generation proof of concept, 3-phase automated human vulnerability scanner. That sounds very swish, doesn't it? Basically means Python code. Python code that nobody's written like this before. And I wish they had. I'm not trying to say I'm super clever or anything. I'm trying to say I can't find anything that does this, and I think it's important enough that we do it. So it's 3-phase. Let's talk about the phases. The first phase is no. Turns out we don't know what our organizations look like. We don't have the faintest idea. Do you remember those polite diagrams I showed you on your first week in your job where it, had one person at the top and then like 6 million people at the bottom and you were somewhere down the bottom and there was a nice hierarchy? That's not how our organizations look. If you start looking at the interactions between people, how they communicate, if you look at the permission structures and who has access to what, that hierarchy that we believe exists is very, very different. In fact, it looks a bit like a graph. In fact, exactly like a graph. Nodes and edges, groups, mailing lists, all sorts of things, because we're highly connected inside our organizations. And that connection gives us power in ways that our job titles and our grades and our roles don't give us. The human security risk of our people is magnified by this. The more highly connected and the more permissions they have, the more they're a valuable target. Now we know this. This is not new. This is called principle of least privilege, and we should all be doing this, right? We should all be auditing our LDAP every week, and it doesn't happen. It happens in the one unicorn organization that, has 70 security people. But for most of us, it's anarchy. So AVA wants to combat that by pulling information from authoritative sources. It's pulling from Active Directory, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, email providers like Exchange. It now does Google Apps for Business. And we're pulling anything we can through legitimate channels, I will note very clearly. I'm not breaking the law, technically. We are pulling the metadata about accounts. We are pulling the people, the identifiers they have, their email addresses, their usernames, IP addresses associated with them, groups. We're pulling relationships, who's talking to who is in the same group as who works with each other. We're not pulling content. I'm just going to state that categorically. I do not want to see what's in your email. I've seen what's in your email. Really, no, nobody else needs to see it. But we are pulling these other things. And we're pulling friends and contacts. We're pulling the frequency you logged in. We're pulling how many times your password has changed and when it last changed. We're pulling, are you administrator? Are you a member of a group that has inherited administrator permissions? Were you the sender or receiver of anything? We're pulling profiles. We're profiling people. Anyone starting to feel squishy yet? Nope, keep going. What are we going to do with all of this? Well, that brings in phase 2. Once you know what your organization looks like, and you have this lovely graph of people and all of the associated information about them, you've got an idea of the types of people who might be more interesting than others. And trust me, it's not going to be your CIO. I'm sorry, any CIOs in the room, you're not an interesting person to me. And I'm going to go into why. Because we're going to inject threat. Now, traditionally, this is phishing attacks. That's the one we're kind of familiar with. And that's cool. We're going to inject all sorts of threat into this network. In safe ways. We're not going to inject malware. There is nothing malicious. Nobody will be harmed. We're going to do it via email, via social networks, via removable media, via files on honeypots. That, file share that claims it's got the latest Avengers movie on. Yeah, who'd have thought that'd be a honeypot? SMS. We're going to use attack vectors that actually represent the ways you communicate. If your organization is using Slack for some kind of DevOps sort of development lifecycle, then we should be there too. The security community needs to be wherever our people are, and we're not right now. We're hanging out in email. I'm afraid to tell you, the development community left email about 5 years ago, and they occasionally revisit when we make them. On the email side alone, phishing is one of the categories we're familiar with, but what about power play? What about if you have an executive high in your company that's emailed a frontline support person and asked them using their commanding, slightly patronizing tone of voice, I need that password, I need that file. How many tier 1 analysts in your organization would feel brave enough to say no? And shouldn't we know that they're likely to say yes? Shouldn't we be able to test this and find out if there is a case for helping them? What if we put disinformation into a network? Where does it come out from? That would be interesting. That's a technique that's been going on since World War II. But we don't have it in our security tools. We ignore it because, that might make us, slightly weird. Now, it turns out when I was looking for ways to do this, I got quite excited because I needed examples of phishing emails and bad things that happened to people. Now, I thought I was alone in this, but I've been keeping these things for a while. Turns out other people collect them too. So here's my first call to action for you. If you happen to be sitting on a stash of malicious emails or tweets or anything, in fact, that has been used to trick the people in your organization or yourself, please let me know. Because we have a growing corpus of this stuff, and we're turning it into benign, so non-malicious, examples of things we know work, so that we have a reusable open source corpus that we can use to test people with. Now, you will have noticed something. I've been mentioning a lot of avenues of attack here that are not inside your business. I've been mentioning LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, and that's because these are the places your people are actually hanging out. I believe we have to take a step and we have to go from just the systems we look at and we control and we bought to the systems people are actually using. I had a client, really lovely, very small client, had very, very posh, fancy, Active Directory-based systems that they built their domain around. But it turns out that people on their front line couldn't really figure out how to share the data they needed. So they'd always found resistance from IT, so what had they done? They set up a private Facebook group with the person they wanted to share it with, and they shared consistently files over that private Facebook group for years. Now, think about your organization. Would you be aware if people in your organization were popping their work documents in a Facebook group? Probably not. This is not going to show up in your logs. Your fancy border device is not going to tell you this is happening. Because there are legitimate reasons they're probably using Facebook during the day. Most of us have a relaxed policy around this now. So why on earth have we filled our organization full of people who will take the path that is least painful to them and expect them to do anything but use their social things too? We need to go there as security people in a calm and constructive way, but we need to go there. We need to do it all the time. Security fails when we dress it up like a special event. When you go into audit somewhere and it's just once a year, they pull out that person in the fancy suit that they've drilled with the answers. And they feel really good and they have a little party at the end. But nothing changed. We didn't prove security happened. We proved that one person in a really nice suit can answer interview questions. We want to be able to do it instantly. We want to do it on a scheduled basis, and we want to do it recurring. And we want to do it over different groups. We want to be able to segment who we send things to and when. We have to give the option of succeeding. Now, it's all very well saying, well, you failed this test, you clicked on the link, you went to the bad site. But are we giving people the option of going, actually, I saw this thing and it looked really dodgy, but I thought you should know, you're the security team and I trust you, and look, you should look at this, it's awesome. Do we ever give them the option of succeeding? So let's make it okay for them to bring their crazy to us. Bring the things that look a bit silly, the ideas you heard going on in the office, and make it safe to do that. And reinforce good behaviors. Wouldn't it be amazing if in your team, one person failed a test and the rest didn't? But instead of them laughing at Bob or Betty, they said, oh, hey, let's talk about that. So I thought it was dodgy because I saw this typo here. Did you look for that? Oh no, I saw this over here and I thought this made it look real. What if people that aren't security people were having that conversation? We wouldn't just have one person paid to do security, we would have an organizational security army. And then we want to do analysis. We want to look at behavior over time. Can we correlate what is happening risk-wise with what we're doing to our people? So if you run your training, where does that fit on your timeline? What if you've hit a really busy period and the executive level have said, you will work more hours, you will get the job done? Can we correlate an increase in poor security behaviors with periods of high stress in our organization? Can we categorically say that the cost of you having a high impact release this month didn't just affect us in terms of overtime paid, it increased our security risk for our people? That would be a powerful message when we're planning things, when we're trying to avoid burnout and stress in our teams. Going back to that training, how many of you have ever been to a training course? I've been to many. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this over my course of my life. Training is big business. Imagine you could actually measure whether it worked or not, whether it actually worked for your HR team, your sales team, or your tech teams. What if you could then choose whether you bought the same training again or whether it needed to be something else? We don't have that power right now. We have no way of measuring our effectiveness of our training. And then there's a couple of things on the edge. Now, I love graphs. I'm a bit of a data nerd. There's some really fascinating graphs that you can look at, and there's properties of graphs that we should probably be looking at. Who are the weak bridges? Who connect communities in our organization? Now, these are going to be the people, you know them. You know them probably quite well. They've been in your organization 7 or 8 years. They've moved a couple of jobs. They're really friendly, and they're the person who gets the job done. So when you're struggling with the change request process or, whatever requisition process, they're the person you know in the back of your mind, well, if I just went to see them, they can help me. They always do. They're amazing. What if we can spot those people? What if instead of making that go away, we can understand what role they were playing and actually try and build that naturally into our organizations in a safe way? Now, in network security, and I used to do network penetration testing for a long time, we talk about pivoting. That's the idea that you come in through one entry, but you might actually hop through several boxes through a network before getting to a high-value target. What if we could do that with people? What if I could tell you where I would get in, so who is most likely to take the initial bait, but then who is going to be the person who follows through with the next attack? How can I pivot through your people? This is why people find this uncomfortable. This is not talking about people and their emotions and their feelings. This is people in the same way we talk about servers. And you know what would be fun? Said no one ever. Predictive risk behavior analysis. It goes all Minority Report at this point, right? Can we prove from past behavior what they're going to do in the future? No, probably not. But we can probably look at this as an interesting place to gain insights we're not even aware we could have yet. Now, there's some boring technologies involved. I'm not going to patronize you by going through this list. We use Docker. So before anyone tweets me and goes, oh my God, Docker insecurity, I've had that conversation. Just, save your time. What I'm trying to say here is these are open source technologies, all of them. It's an open source project. It's out on the internet. The code is there. In fact, I'm going to give you a demo. Now, the demo is not the whole thing. And like I said, this is an unfinished tool. I want to show you just one part. I want to show you how easy it would be for anyone in your organization to pull all of this information from your Active Directory and your Google. So let's see if the video works. Okay, we'll do clicking. Da-da-da. Hooray. Okay, I'm going to talk through it. It has no sound. So what I'm showing you to begin with is quite how easy it is to get going. So that's me running one script. Now, I don't know if any of you used Docker before. This is me on a Mac. You can use it on a Mac or Linux. It doesn't really matter. And this is me starting it. 3 words. Done. Hooray. So you can get the code yourself. You can get it up and running. Job done. Look, there was no salespeople or anything. Wasn't that sweet? Okay. So in this case, I've got a local DNS reference to what I'm calling avasecure.com, but you could have it on a local IP. And this is what our interface looks like. We actually have a UX person on staff. We think UX is so important in this that we need to focus on it from number 2. That number 2 concern is UX for us. This we're seeing here is actually what it looks like. This is an organization. This is a test set of data you can go and get from the GitHub repo. It's modeled after a cartoon show called Gravity Falls. So no real humans were hurt in the creation of this. You can go and explore. You can go and look at who's an administrator. You can go look at their identifiers. You can go and see who's in groups that have admin access who you wouldn't have twigged they would be an admin. And the whole idea is that it should be easy. And this is how easy it should be. We're going to import from Active Directory here. So this is a standard LDAP server I've got running on a virtual machine. there is another side project you can do to build one of these yourself. A few little bits, just for the record, you'll see in big letters, we do not save usernames and passwords. You know, the best way to secure them is to never, ever have them. And 2 minutes later. Now, that's it. Job done. I didn't need a specialist. I didn't need a big systems administrator. I didn't need to plug in a box into a network. This is just it. 70 people, the structures between them. Now, there's bits that don't show well in this presentation, and that's the visualization bit, the graph part. Now, I tried to put it into the video, but given the size of this room, you wouldn't have seen. You'd have seen a lot of circles, and I'd have gone, ta-da, and felt really good, and you'd have got no value. So, I encourage you to go and have a play. Then it comes to case studies. You can't do this without actually talking about some businesses using it in real life, and that's what we've been trying to do. Our product is unfinished, but it's unfinished because we need to work with business to finish this. Here was the process we decided on. It's the only wall of text slide I have in this deck, but I needed you to have some idea that we didn't just kind of go, you know what would be fun, hack people. So we had a bit of a plan. We were going to get big organizations and we were going to do a big case study for you. And then this happened. I went, can I see your data, please? And I'm going to do this talk, but I'll anonymize it. But it's this talk called Black Hat. It's like this place in the US, and security people go there. And they went, you want to show this at Black Hat? And I went, yeah, awesome. Look, enthusiastic and keen. And they went, you're funny. And I went, please? Please? And they went, what? You're serious? And then I said, yes. And they went, nope, 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 which in American is lawyer, 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 lawyer. So we struggled with a case study, but we were lucky. New Zealand is a little more trusting than America. We did find 3 organizations who were willing to play with the no section, but only in the way that we could give you a very anonymized, dumbed-down version. But I'm going to share that with you anyway, because it turns out when you come and present something that attacks people at a hacking conference, people get a bit squiffy. So we found 540 people in these 3 organizations. They crossed the public and private sector. They were relatively large organizations by New Zealand standards. And I remember New Zealand is a tiny island at the bottom of the planet. We have hobbits. Our big companies are about the size of your small companies. So, bear in mind, scale is a problem for us. And here's my stats. I'm not going to read them to you. That was the first intel we got within 2 minutes of putting the data into AVA. Now, there's a number there, 11 years, and inside me, a penetration tester died. Because we don't need to worry about 0 days. We don't need to worry about fancy threat intelligence. We really don't. It is 2015. Why are we still having this issue? So, sorry, personal rant over. Yes, so we need more case studies, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you could be our case study, your organization, and why I don't need to see your data for you to do that. But before we get to that, there are some challenges, and there's some things that we need to consider. You see, this is actually what I'm calling a public interest security tool. This is a tool we need to talk about not just inside our community, but actually with everyone in our organizations, because we are about to look into an area that is going to make people deeply unhappy. And we need to do this very carefully, and we need to do it very consciously, and remember that our view of the world as security people is not the same as everyone else's. With the traditional security program change, where we start to embrace threat intelligence or application security, it's a top-down sell. You sell to the C-level, they're the ones with the money, and everyone else follows suit because now they've got an expensive device and somebody who cares about it. In this, we have to sell it from the bottom up. You may, get hold of a copy or, find a tool that you're paying for. But if your people revolt at this point, if they pull out their terms of service for their employment agreement and say this is a human rights violation, which we've heard before, then you've got a problem. You can't just vulnerability scan people if you don't get their buy-in first. Common question, is this even legal? To be quite honest, probably. Maybe. Definitely sometimes. In Australia, for example, it's illegal to send spam email. But is it technically spam if it's inside your systems from an account you control to people that you employ? Is that still spam? Is it okay to pull together lots of information? Is there any guidance around that in the law? The answer is no. In the US, you've got a lot of constitutional rights that would be an interesting discussion in this space. We don't have them in New Zealand and Australia, and I'm not qualified to talk about them. But I do really think that we should be having this discussion. Is there something we need to do here? Do we need to make sure we understand the law? Because we certainly need to protect our people. Now, the trick for us is that we're looking for publicly already published information. So if somebody has already got tweets out there, or they're already publicly sharing things on Facebook, like you don't have to be a friend with them to see it, then is it fair game? Your LinkedIn profile, which is like a honey trap for recruiters, we put them out there, with the little sparkly bits and say, come find me. Is it fair game because we intentionally put it out there? I don't know, but I think we need to ask. I think we really need to start to care. Can we do this without compromising privacy? Now, this is a really sticky subject. People need to protect their privacy. It's a foundational right we have as human beings to privacy, and I am a firm proponent of privacy. And that's about the ability to know what somebody has on you, the ability to update it, to get it deleted, to ask about it. We think this is such a problem that there's actually another talk you can go and watch. We did a talk at OSCON just 2 weeks ago about the ethics of open sourcing weaponizable code. It turns out there hasn't been a lot of public debate about this. We wish there had, because we'd have somebody to go and ask. We want to get people answering these and asking these questions. We formed an ethics and privacy board just for our tool. We joined together using Slack, the communications platform, and we're hoping to have an objective, representative, independent and collaborative group of people challenging this tool and tools like it. Because I firmly believe we need to do it, but I know I don't know all the questions here. And I know if I don't go and ask, if I don't find the people in the world who can represent their minority or their specific set of needs and concerns, I'm going to overlook something. My team will overlook it. We as a community will overlook it. And it doesn't matter when we do that with computers. We can just retrofit, it's fine. But people will get hurt if we don't do this right. New members are welcome. Please do come along and apply. You can drop us an email. We also have an open plain English policy. You will notice if you go and look in our GitHub, we have a privacy policy. We have a code of conduct. Now, they're not enforceable. This is a Git project. You could go and put it in your environment. You could do whatever the hell you like with it. You fork my project, it's going to be like Gremlins. I started with a cute little thing, and then you go and turn it into something that destroys New York. We try and be very open with what we're trying to do. So I encourage you, if you're interested in the space, to work with us to contribute to our version and help us keep in that path. All of our guidance is written in plain English. If you find it difficult in any way to understand, we have failed. Help us make it even easier to understand. We will fail if we make this complex. If people outside our community can't understand, we fail. We need to provide people with the information they need to protect themselves and their privacy. One of the first things that came out of our privacy board, and one of the questions that was raised was, so you show somebody all of their information, you've got all their information, what do they know about it? So we've made a change. The new version we're currently working on is going to, the first thing it does, before it tells the security owner of the tool that they have someone's data, it tells the data's owner. So if they pull my data, for example, I would get an email saying, hi, this is an email from AVA. Your company, your boss, has decided that protecting you is important. Would you like to see all your data? The first person and the only real person who is entitled to see all of their data in this tool is the owner of that data. From there, we hope to show the extent of what was available, where we found it from. There's no magic here. There's no secret source. And we hope to give them the option of changing that. Give them the link to the Facebook page where they can change their privacy options. Give them the link to some guidance on how to do this better. We want to give people an option of success, and that has to be continuous. It has to be available to everyone, and it has to be tightly controlled. Oh, and then is this even technically possible? Because it turns out this space is relatively challenging. I started writing this with the typical Kiwi attitude of, how hard can it be? Turns out quite. When you're dealing with a lot of different systems and different integration points, you've got complexity. We're talking about scale of data that is really immense. Now, processing large sets of data, or big data, as they like to call it these days, isn't hard. Doing that in a way you could actually visualize it on a screen and a human being can actually deal with it and understand it is terrifying. I've been talking to a lot of you around this conference today, and one of the startling things that I always get surprised by, but with American companies, is that companies that consider themselves small have 50,000 people in them. We are talking a scale we cannot visualize simply. We need to do some work on it. It turns out we also learned there's a reason why compromised email accounts have a really high market value. That's because it's sort of dubious creating them, and they're really hard to maintain. You have to maintain convincing aliases for a tool like this. This is something that AVA itself won't help you with. You would need to manage this. If you are actually a scammer, or that's why you're making money. This space is hard. It's hard to manage. And it's a problem we haven't quite cracked yet. We're trying hard, but we haven't cracked it. And we don't just need email accounts, we need LinkedIn profiles, Twitter profiles, and they need to be active and convincing. Because it's all very well compromising someone who is careless enough they just looked at an empty profile and believed it. But what if it looks convincing? Oh yeah, and by the way, nobody on the planet has any more time for more appliances in their organization. A study proved that it takes between 2 or 3 skilled individuals to actually run an appliance in their organization. So if we were to add another one, you'd need 2 or 3 people who actually understood how people ticked, who could communicate with other human beings, which, nothing personal, I'm in the security space, we're really bad at it. So we need unicorns to man an appliance like this. So this is hard. How do we make this usable to people who aren't security people in a way that non-security people can do security things? I want to make us all redundant. Sorry, again. So where's it going next? Well, it's a research project. Like I said, it's unfinished. It's unfinished but working. You can pull things from Google Apps for Business. You can pull things from Active Directory, and it's rapidly evolving. We've got an active community, and we want more. There is basic email testing in there. There is basic Twitter testing in there. But we need more testing of it. We need continuous integration. We need a roadmap. We have been bootstrapping initially in nap times when my newborn daughter was teeny tiny. It was written in hour-long chunks. Now we have a real team, and we are refactoring and making it into a sensible, proper engineered application, but this takes time. Like I mentioned with the appliances, many organizations we spoke to really want to do this, but they don't know how to do it themselves. And I think we're going to have an emerging space come through of security culture as a change. Now, if you come to this event in 3 years and that vendor hall is full of this service, don't buy a magic box. Please do not buy a magic box. If you cannot see what this is doing to your people, if you cannot engage with them on an ethical debate, walk away. We want to integrate more. We're currently already integrating with Google. Hi, Google people. I've been trying to contact you for a while. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Slack, GitHub. If you can name a place where your people are hanging out, sharing information, we want to be there. We don't want to be there in a dodgy capacity. We want to use APIs. We want to integrate properly. We want to work with trust and security teams for these organizations. But we're having difficulty reaching you. You don't answer your email. So please, hi, we should talk. There's plenty of room for contribution here. We are growing our team slowly, but like I said, we're bootstrapped. We don't have any crazy funding. But we have an ethics board that needs people. We need developers. We need people who do documentation. We need sociologists. So if you know a tame sociologist, please send them my way. And most of all, we want volunteers. I want volunteer organizations to come and do safe, consensual, human security science at scale. I want big organizations to be brave enough to come and show how they're made. I want you to show in an anonymized way how your people connect to each other. What would your graph look like? What were you surprised by in your findings? Because when we start having this debate, when we have this discussion, our people start getting more secure. And it's going to take leaders, big organizations, to do this. We can have the ideas, but without the support of those, without someone being brave and open to being vulnerable, we're never going to get anywhere as a community. We have a problem with people. It's big. We have more people in our organizations than we know what to do with, literally in a security sense. AVA is an early stage alpha product. You can use it. It does work. You can contribute to it. You could deploy it today with the Docker scripts. But the road ahead is really hard. We need to be able to protect our people. That's a genuine need, but we have to do it ethically with privacy in mind. And we're going to have to sell security to our entire organization for the first time in our history. We have never had to do this before. If you want to learn more about AVA, this is all of its contact details. It has a website. There is a read the docs thing that's got a whole get involved page and many places to come and talk to us. We have an email address. We even answer it. Hey, Twitter. You can get us on GitHub. It's easy. You don't have to be technical. If anyone has any questions, though, any part of this concerns you, or any part of this you think needs raising loudly in a room full of people who share your concerns, now's your time. There's a microphone. Just there, we have 4 minutes and 20 seconds, according to the clock. And if not, I'll be around afterwards. Thank you very much. Oh, no questions. Oh, no, hi.
Howdy. Whoa.
Wow.
I really got up on that mic. I apologize. So in the trials that you've done so far, or if you haven't had any actionable data from the data sets that you've had to work with, how would you envision reacting to the intel that you derive from this tool without going back to security awareness training?
Yeah. So the one thing that we would like to see as a reaction is some kind of gamification where instead of us telling people how to do something, the best way for people to engage with the process and know what to do is for them to kind of discover it. So we want to make it so that as a team, you know what areas, have been problematic, and you can look at some options. We can suggest options in, but I want them to, as a group, go, well, for us, what works? What would we do here? How can we protect our little group? I want to actually push the decisions of what remediation down to the little pods of people, because I think if we try and dictate as we have done historically, we will get the same resistance we currently have. Hi. Oh, it wasn't. It was exciting.
Hi. First, I want to applaud you for your bravery in doing this. This is absolutely amazing. And as a human, I would love to see that data about my own connections to people in my organization. And I think when users see this and they can see the type of data that anyone can derive from these services through social engineering, that they would really see the value in it. And I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to tell you that I thought this was amazing and incredibly, incredibly hard. So
thank you. If I do nothing else, I want actual, real people, not us. We're special. We're a bit weird and broken. And I want real, normal, everyday people to be able to see this and do something about it. Because if they can't see it, they genuinely don't know where to begin. Okay, awesome. Stunned silence. So thank you. Thank you very much.